started. So welcome everybody to this week's CybHER conversation brought to you by Peraton. My name is Sarah and I'm an outreach coordinator for CybHER, and I'm joined by Kanthi, our Chief of Strategy. CybHER is an organization out of Dakota State University in Madison, South Dakota that works to motivate, empower, and educate girls in cybersecurity. At any point during the presentation, you can ask questions using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. I'm so excited to welcome today's speaker, Jaclyn Scott. As a tenured Special Operations Warrant Officer, tech blogger, podcaster, small business owner, and Senior Analyst in Global Intelligence, Jaclyn Jax Scott has sought to expand her skills within cybersecurity. Jax has held positions on nonprofit boards, providing tactical advice to reduce injury to women and children affected by human trafficking, and has held leadership roles providing cybersecurity guidance to foreign leaders. She is an expert in military cyber policy and has led global development operations and cyber countermeasures to mitigate attacks. Jax has over 17 years of experience in military operations, where she has worked on a special unit that offered gender-specific intelligence and security solutions. She is committed to her growth as a leader, and she is currently co-authoring a cybersecurity book and finishing her master's in cybersecurity risk management at Georgetown University. Jaclyn, take it away.
That was amazing. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Kanthi, and thank you, CybHER, for having me. I'm really excited about this. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share my screen. You guys just let me know if you can see this presentation. Good to go. Great. All right. So as Sarah said, Jaclyn, I typically go by Jax Scott, currently a Director of Cyber Threat Intelligence and a Special Operations Warrant Officer. So a little bit about myself. Who am I? So my social background, I like to give a little bit of this so you can kind of understand what I call a soft skill. So I'm a big snowboarder, a big advocate of skiing. What some people don't know about me is I was actually a sponsored athlete by the Colorado National Guard. That's a photo of me on the far right where I used to ski and shoot for the military. And then that's me on the left, right before COVID, just coming off the mountain here in Virginia at one of the resorts. I also have a fur baby, Cooper Kitty. He is the best cat ever. The top right corner is how he feels on a Monday morning. Typically is how I feel on a Monday. And then I'm a big hiker. I love to get outdoors, anything outdoors, that's my jam. I actually climbed the Grand Canyon rim to rim, and I have on my bucket list, when the travel restrictions lift, I will be climbing Kilimanjaro. That photo of me on the left is actually just a couple of months ago. I was in Puerto Rico and I hiked one of the tallest mountains, which isn't very tall at all, but it was extremely muddy. It was so much fun, but it was definitely a challenge. And then I live out in Virginia, so the Appalachian Trail is right outside my back door. And so I get away from the world of technology and kind of just disconnect and reconnect to nature. So a little bit about my professional background. I really had a hybrid school life, meaning I was homeschooled for a lot of my life, and then I went into high school, middle school life. And why that's important is it was really unconventional. School wasn't really a big framework in my life. I left high school and really didn't know what I wanted to do. And so I did what any 19-year-old kid does. I started my own company. So I founded my own actually perfume company. And what I was doing is selling designer perfume out of the trunk of my car because I didn't have a storefront at the time. Gas was definitely cheaper during this period. And I was doing fairly well. I actually had 2 companies and I was making a few $1,000s a month, but it wasn't a sustainable business for me. I wanted to do more with my life. I just didn't know what that was. I didn't come from, again, a highly educated background, and I didn't have that pedigree where I had the network. So I joined the military. It was something that I'd always wanted to do. I had a grandfather that was in the military and I had a brother that had joined. But other than that, nobody really in my family or my circle was in the military. But I'd always seen it in movies and everything. So when I joined the military, I initially came in as resource management. And then I shortly after that changed into information technology, where this was where my journey really began in, we'll say cyber, but it really started in IT for me. I worked mostly on the help desk in SharePoint, and I will tell you, I did not enjoy it very much. but it definitely taught me patience. And this was back in 2008, 2009. So cyber still wasn't a term. And so I didn't even know what cyber was. I just knew I didn't like the help desk or SharePoints. During this time too, I had heard about a special program that the Special Operations had stood up, and it was called the Cultural Support Team Program. And why this is important is it was the first time that the military was recruiting women to be in a special operations command unit and actually embed with special operations operators. And what this program started teaching me is I didn't so much use my IT skills as much as I started learning about intelligence. And the reason that I started learning more about intelligence is when I would go into these villages, my mission was to engage the women and children. What a lot of people may not know is in the Middle East, if you are not a direct family member or the husband of that wife and children, you're not allowed to speak to those women and children. So there was this huge information gap that was taking place when the male special operators would go out for missions. They weren't able to get any information off of the women because they couldn't talk to them. So I was their secret weapon. I would go in, I would hold these big events. I would work and talk with the women and children to get information that then would develop an intelligence picture. During this time, I started developing relationships, not only with the different locals in the area, but I started developing relationships with other host nation partners. I started really enjoying intelligence, and that was kind of the area I started wanting to shift into more. And I got really good at what I was doing, and that allowed me to actually start doing what we call in the military direct action operations. So what this means is that photo right there on the left was an actual photo that we had taken, and we were boarding a helicopter to go and fly into a village where we would be working during the night and going basically door to door to either try to find a terrorist or interview the villagers to identify possibly if a terrorist had been in the area. And my primary mission, again, was to go and to interview and talk with the women and children, not only to get information, but to see if they needed any supplies. And during these deployments, and when we would go into villages, there would be times where I would actually start working with the male individuals. And that this would happen for a couple of reasons. They would happen because maybe the male interpreter was tied up and they were already interviewing and talking to other villagers, or they wanted me to talk to the males because it would throw the male off so much because he wasn't used to talking to another woman minus his wife. So I was still able, again, to start seeing how intel worked, how information worked, social engineering, things like that. I really loved what I did. This is actually a photo of my interpreter and I on one of our final missions, waiting to be what we call exfilled out of the village. And we're sitting there drinking a local energy drink, just enjoying the day. I'm muddy as heck in that photo, as you can see. But I started realizing this is probably not a long-term career plan for me. It's hard on the joints and you might, you get shot at. So I decided I probably need to do something a little bit more advantageous with my career. And what I started learning about is a area in cyber called cyber threat intel. So fast forward, I was in deployment and doing intelligence work probably in 2011 and 12. And I stayed in the special ops till just recently, but during that time, I started transitioning into the civilian sector right around 2019. I did my last mobilization in 2019 to Europe, where I supported host nation partners in developing their cyber policy and their cyber plans. And I was working really closely with the intel team. So when I came back to the States in the end of 2019, I was brought on to a civilian company, a private sector company, that brought me on as a cyber threat intel analyst. And I still wasn't fully familiar with what this role was and what it entailed, because it's not just intel. I started learning about how it was actually intel with a little bit of flair of the technical understanding, using different, we call them indicators of compromise, to be able to track down adversaries or map and identify TTPs that an adversary attacking your network. So that's kind of cyber threat intel. So what I thought was really cool is I was not only able to take my leadership experience and my IT experience and my Intel experience, and I was able to bring that over into the civilian sector, which was awesome. And that's what I do today. There was a big change going from the public sector to the private sector. But in the learning curve, I feel like you're going to have that in any environment. So what am I doing today? My current goals right now, I have a podcast. I actually co-host a cybersecurity podcast called Hackers and Hexens. Hexens actually is German for female hacker. We're an inclusive podcast. We have 2 female and a male co-hosts. And the premise is to bring inclusion to the industry. We have a lot of women that we have on the show to interview. And we just had a female college student on the show because we really want to see the perspectives of every individual and every culture on that show, ranging from talking about burnout to how to brand in the industry. And then I'm writing a book right now. I'm very fortunate that I work with 3 other people who are co-authoring the cybersecurity book, and it should publish in the fall. It's going to be an intro into the cybersecurity industry. And then I do public speaking just like this. I love to speak. I'm a huge advocate for women and diversity, but especially women in this sector. We need more women. And then I do a lot of mindset training and teaching. And one of my goals is to do TEDx by 2022 and then continue to edge. It's really important for continued education for me because of my background and where I came from. And especially in this sector, one of the things that I've learned, and anybody that wants to go into this sector, is learning is crucial. You'll never be the smartest person in the room. You just have to be willing to learn and expand yourself, and you'll be extremely successful in this sector. And I'm working on certifications and still working always on my hands-on experience. And I want to end with a quick quote for everybody that's listening. Cyber is a rapidly changing landscape with a lot of opportunities. We need more talented women to join the ranks and support one another. So anybody that wants and is thinking about joining, I encourage you to reach out to me or anybody else on this call. We need you. We need more talents. And that concludes my talk. I am going to open the floor now for any questions.
Oh my God, I have to say that was amazing. That is so cool. You were an entrepreneur, you were in the military, you were in the public sector, no, the private sector now. You're an author, you host podcasts. Oh my God, that is amazing. So with all of these different hats that you've worn, do you have a favorite?
Oh, an entrepreneur to the core always. I still actually own a company. It's called the Outpost Gray, and it was my defense contracting firm that I launched to provide female operators in the DoD space. And it's very near and dear to me. It's not 100% active, meaning I don't go after contracts. However, I just can't get rid of that LLC or that bank account. I know that one day I will go back to being a CEO or a president of some sort, because that's just something that's in my core. I love to create and I love to foster growth in other people.
Oh my God, amazing. So you were in the military, right? So are you able to tell us what countries in the Middle East that you've been to?
Yeah, primarily the missions that we worked were in northern Afghanistan. It was actually at that time a really hostile area. There's this area in Afghanistan called the Ring Road. It's a little circle on the map that goes all the way around. And there was a road, and that's what they used for transportation. But what would happen is at that time it was the Taliban. I think it's ISIS now. There was a ring road that on the northwest side, they would destroy that road. So they wouldn't let vehicles circle all the way around. So it impeded getting any supplies or anything to certain villagers, or take triple the time. So that was our primary areas of operations, was all out of that area when I deployed. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what branch of the military would this fall under then?
Yeah, and I didn't mention that. Great question. The U.S. Army.
Okay.
And now they did have and they still do have other programs. The Marines, I believe, has the Lioness, which was very similar, where they brought women in to work with the Marine Special Ops. And then the conventional Army, which is not the Special Ops, they had a FET team, and I cannot remember what that stands for, but each branch after SOCOM created, Special Operations Command created the CST program, other branches started following suit because they started seeing the impact, the positive impact that they had when they had women coming in and working with these teams side by side.
So while you were talking, I wrote down a few questions. So what you had mentioned that you do a lot of mindset training. Can you tell us a little bit more about mindset training?
Absolutely. This is such a passion of mine because going in and being in the military and moving through combat, there are going to be certain traumatic events that you're going to naturally deal with. It is the effect of going to war. And one thing that has helped me immensely has been my capability, training myself to slow down and to meditate and to take little micro breaks to give back to myself. For example, we hear all the time about self-care. And maybe prior to COVID, self-care was like really massages and pedicures and having a spa day or going to brunch with the girls. And a lot of times now we can't do that. And we need more now than maybe just one spa day a month. And so what has really helped me is outside of the meditation and my quiet time is I take micro breaks. For example, today I had back-to-back meetings all day. I reached out to one of my coworkers. I asked him, can I get a 10-minute? And I just show up late, give me 10 extra minutes before our meeting. And I took 6 minutes, and I have an amazing balcony with a hammock, and it's all green space. And I just sat out there for 6 minutes. I left my phone and everything inside. And even though it seems like 6 minutes, it's so much more when you do compound little micro things. Just do tiny things for yourself and you'll see a huge result. And so that's been helping me a lot.
I like your concept of doing micro breaks, because a lot of the times we just think, oh, Sunday I get to sleep in, or Sunday I get to go out and do this. And you burn out until Sunday. And on Sunday, you're okay. I guess you go out, you do whatever you want to do. And then you're back at the stress cycle again on Monday. So your concept of doing micro breaks, I like it. I'm going to try that.
It's a huge help. I love it. I do that. I journal. I used to journal a lot more. I go on and off of journaling, but when I have a problem in my head that's really causing me turmoil or anxiety, I write it down or I talk to somebody about it. Those have been big shifts in my life. I think that we're in a very unique place because of COVID now, and we can be isolated. And it's just, what's your outlet? How are you going to reach out? But make sure you're starting to reach out to people and talk.
Yeah, that is great. I like that. Yeah. So you had mentioned that you were a special warrant officer. What does that job entail? Like, what do you do? Or, yeah, what is the job responsibility, and how does one become a special warrant officer?
Such a great question, and I will try to explain it as best as possible because it's unique. So a warrant officer in the Army is a very unique branch. The Army and the Navy have warrant officers. The rest of the military branch don't have warrant officers. And what a warrant officer is somebody that typically, there are certain people like pilots, for example, that can join the military and they go straight into pilot school and they become a warrant. But typically the large number of warrants have a specialized skill that they've done for 8+ years and 8 years is like the very bare minimum typically. Usually it's 15 to 20 years. They've done a specialized skill and then they apply and they submit what is called a warrant packet, and it has to go to the congressional level and you have to be approved by POTUS, the president, to be able to be selected as a warrant officer. There is, I want to say less than 5%, it might even be less than that. I haven't looked at the percentage, but it's less than 5% of Army officers that are warrant officers. So to become a warrant officer, I was in information technology, and I did that for about 9 to 10 years. And when I submitted to become an electronic warfare warrant officer. and I have to submit, justify why I should be selected. And then upon selection, I can go to the school, which is then a whole lot of running and push-ups and making your bed and getting yelled at for a few months to get pinned warrant officer. And then at that point in time, that is your field, and you usually don't leave that field. They call it your branch. And so my actual branch in the military, and it fell under the special ops because that's where I was slotted. And so I use the term, I'm a special operations electronic warfare warrant officer. And so it's a very long title. I don't typically, if I tell a military person that, they'll understand. Otherwise, I would just say I'm a warrant officer, but that's how you achieve that. And I hope I explained that where it wasn't too confusing.
Yes, you did.
Okay.
I had never heard of a special warrant officer before, so I wanted to know a little bit more. And
yeah.
Sounds very
it's definitely a unique branch. I love it. Yeah, it was the best decision I ever made. They call us the unicorns because you don't see too many warrants. And any warrant you see, they're usually very much an expert in their field. So everybody just kind of leaves you alone. It's wonderful.
That is very cool.
Yeah.
You get to do your job. Nobody bothers you. I love that.
Yeah.
So we have a question from one of our audience. So how did you overcome any language barriers that you might have faced during your service then, because you were stationed in the Middle East?
Yeah, I love this question because we actually had cultural training for 2 months before we even moped. And so it was they engulfed us. All we did from 9 to 5 is we sat in a classroom and we learned about the Middle Eastern culture, Pashtunwali. We did learn some Dari, but we had an interpreter that came with us. And that was the person that you used for any translations. But I learned enough, they taught us how to say hello and goodbye and all of the proper, like in America, we shake hands and what to do out there, when to make eye contact, when not to make eye contact. We very much respect their culture. So we always had head covering on. You might've seen it in some of my photos. If I had a helmet on, what I did, because you're in that helmet, I can't wear a scarf. So what I did is I actually had 2 pigtails right here because of my helmet. If you had a ponytail and it was hanging out, that was just very disrespectful for their culture. So I would do these little tiny buns right here. And then I put a bandana and I tied the bandana like that off. So if I took my helmet off, it was a bandana. And the only things you could see were these little tiny nubs of hair sticking out, but it was covered most of the time. And my interpreter had to do the same thing. And then we, the male operators, could wear cutoff shirts, but no matter how hot it was, we had to wear long sleeves at all time to respect them. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a lot of change from the way we see things here. So very different there. Yeah.
It is very different. Women don't have any power and any say at all. Doesn't matter. Even if that's the woman of the house, it doesn't matter. The man still owns everything.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we could get into a whole new discussion if we start talking about that. So
yeah, yeah, definitely.
So you said in order to be a special warrant officer, you had to have the president's approval, right? So what president gave the approval for you to be the officer?
Wow, that's such a great question. Who was our president was it Obama? Who was our president? I think it was Obama then, if I can do my math quickly, because I was pinned in 2014. Yep, I was pinned in 2014. I think it was Obama. Yeah. So that's awesome. Hey, look at that. Yeah, I never thought about that. It's such a great question. Yeah.
So when you were in the military, did you face any discrimination just because you're a female then? Or is it just something that we hear constantly in the movies and stuff, but it's not true in real life?
Ooh, that is a really good question, because I actually this morning just dealt with a situation that was, yes, very much targeted to the fact that I was a woman. The situation was, but I want to tread lightly, because I want to say since I have been in over almost 18 years now, it has changed a lot from where I started to where I'm at now. Is it perfect? No. Do women still get discounted? Absolutely. But that's in any industry, unfortunately, and a lot of industries. I won't, I'm not going to pigeonhole any. So yes, definitely have had those challenges, but I believe that is why I am such a huge advocate for supporting women in any industry, but even more so and I say my industry, because I love the cyber industry. We need more women, and the cyber industry is very male dominated, but it's getting away from that. I think we're almost at a 50-50 ratio right now, or maybe it's 25% where we have, but I think it's 50% where there's diversity versus the males, but there's 25% total that are becoming women. And that has changed by almost 11 to 15% just in the last 2 years. It's gone up that far. And so that's important. But the takeaway is through those challenges, I've just become stronger and I have my circle of women even closer. It's just unfortunate that we just haven't got there yet for inclusion, both in the military and in cyber.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. The women have so much to offer, but it's not designed for them. I recently saw this Instagram post, a woman of color posting, "I'm no longer going to use the term imposter syndrome. I'm going to say we all feel this way. Women and minorities feel this way because it wasn't designed, the system wasn't designed for people like us." So, and that's why we face a lot of this discrimination. We always are, doubting ourselves. Oh my God, am I good enough? Am I not good enough? And so I thought that was really well said. The system really wasn't designed for women and other minorities. And yeah.
But we're breaking that. We're breaking that mold. We're breaking the glass ceiling and we're making it happen. And I'm loving it.
Exactly. Yes. What's a risk that you took in your career that really paid off?
So many. Oh my gosh. I would say becoming a warrant officer was a huge risk. I was actually 6 months to getting out of the military and I got approached to become a warrant officer. And at first I said no. And because this branch, electronic warfare, hadn't been created yet. It was in 2013. It was just in the inception phases. They quasi had a branch. And I was just so done and exhausted. I just got back from deployment. And I will tell you, that was the best decision I've made, not ever, but definitely the best decision militarily. And because if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. It entirely changed my directory. And then electronic warfare got sucked up under cyber in the Army. And then that's what led me into cyber. And I didn't really articulate that about my story, but that was a segue into bringing me back into cyber, not only the intelligent piece, but then being an electronic warfare officer. It was super interesting. Yeah.
Cool. What do you want your lasting impact to be?
I want my lasting impact to be how I make you feel. So what that means is I don't care if my name's on a building. I'm not vain like that. I don't care if there's a book written about me. What I care about is how that lasting impression that people have when I die. How did I make you feel? When you hear my name, do you feel warmth and excited and motivated and know that you can do anything? Then I've accomplished my goal. That's what I want.
I love that so much. We're almost out of time, so I'm going to wrap it up with one last question. What advice would you give to the young people that are watching the session?
You can do and be anything that you want. If you have people telling you otherwise, reach out to anybody that's on here. Reach out to me. There's my contact information. I know it can seem really isolated and really siloed, and this is it in your life, but you have your entire life in front of you. Dream big. And if your dreams don't scare you, you're not dreaming big enough. Yeah. And thank you guys for having me again. This is awesome.
And thank you, Jax. This entire presentation has just been so fascinating to listen to and so different than any other presenter that we've had. So we thank you again for that. Everyone who's joined, I'm opening up a quick poll right now in just a second. And we would appreciate if you were to complete that. It just lets us know a little bit more about you. Please follow us on social media. We have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And check out our website at cyber.org for more information on our programs and upcoming CybHER conversations. Thank you for joining us again, Jax, and everybody have a great rest of your night.
Thank you, guys.